This is Insider Trading with Bob McKenzie, Pierre, LeBrun, and Darren Dreger. Kudos to Bob, is the only member of the panel still shaving at this point in time. NHL player isolation extended to April 15th. Why, Dregs?
Well, James, it's all about the local isolation guidelines that are established by the local authorities, and the fact that lawfully the National Hockey League can't go into the NHL facilities until those local authorities lift the ban. If you want to use the Washington Capitals as an example, Arlington, Virginia has put a ban on all gatherings in that area until June 10th. So this is extension April 15th, might go well beyond April 15th.
To hockey, the Toronto Maple Leafs have had success with Russians. Mikheyev was a success. They signed their draft pick, Igor Korshkov, and in pursuit of another one.
Alexander Barabanov, he's a 5'10", 195-pound forward. He's got decent numbers in the KHL. Over the course of this year, James, there's been as many as 20 NHL clubs who've been acquired. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Arizona Coyotes believed to be the front runners. I believe that Kyle Dubas will meet with Barabanov's representation, Dan Milstein, later this week. The interview process did start earlier today.
If and when the all clear is sounded, it's still a big if right now for the NHL. The NBA is already talking about playing games in centralized locations with no fans in the stands. Pierre, what would NHL centralization look like if it happened?
Yeah, that's been a discussion the National Hockey League has also had, James, behind the scenes. Certainly, I should stress, not the preferred route for the NHL, to point out the obvious, but it's something they have discussed. And what I'm told is for a 16-team playoff that they're looking at 4 separate centralized cities that they would start the playoffs in. Now, because of all the different playoff formats that they're talking about, it could be more than 4 cities if it's a 20-team playoff or 24-team playoff, all those formats that we've speculated. But yeah, it's on the card. It's just that it's not what they hope to do if all goes their way.
We have no idea what hockey revenues are going to look like for this year or next year. But Bob, we finally know what they looked like last year.
Yeah, for 2018-19 season, the National Hockey League and the National Hockey League Players Association in the last number of days here have finally agreed on what the final hockey-related revenue number was for that season that was completed. And the good news for the players, I guess, is they get a little bit of the escrow back. They paid almost 13% in escrow for the 18-19 season. And in fact, after they've done the reconciliation here, it should be just a shade under 10%. So the players are going to be getting back a little over 3% of the face value of their contracts from the 18-19 season. Maybe better news for the owners, they get close to 10% coming back to them, and those payments are expected to be made here in the next couple of weeks. The official sign-off still has to happen in the next day or two, but by mid-April, some money going into the pockets of both the NHL owners and the players.
And some big payments slated for July 1st. Almost $450 million in signing bonuses are due. In the midst of this economic mess, Dregs, what happens to those?
Well, traditionally, July 1st, as we know, symbolizes the start of the new season, and that's next year. And it's starting to look obvious at this point that there will be a pushback to the season. So it's been a red flag by the National Hockey League. And you're right, you're talking about enormous money here, James. Almost $500 million in signing bonus that would be scheduled to be paid out July 1st. And if you look at the top 5 teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs are head and shoulders above everyone else in the league. Toronto is scheduled to pay out just over $60 million, followed by San Jose at over 38. The New York Rangers, Tampa Bay, Dallas are in the top 5. But if there is a pushback, then July 1st maybe becomes September 1st as a starting point to the new season, and that money would be deferred to that point. And you look at where the Canadian teams factor in on all of this. Again, Toronto at the top of the food chain with Austin Matthews topping the league at a signing bonus owed of $15.2 million. And then you look at the bottom of the 7 Canadian team contingent, and you get the Winnipeg Jets, who perhaps manage their books wisely with 0 signing bonus money scheduled to go out at any point in the near future.
Pierre, is there a possibility, it's hard to see positives right now, but maybe out of all this, would long-term labor peace be a possibility?
Well, James, certainly that's what everyone hopes. And it's interesting. Donald Fear, last week when I chatted with him, a little hint from him, he said, listen, he hopes that's the case in terms of a positive frame of mind for when CBA talks resume. And what he said is sometimes when you go through adversity with the other side, there are bonds that suddenly form. It was an interesting comment from Don Fear, who we know went toe-to-toe with Gary Bettman in the 2012 lockout. And the conversations that I've had with player agents and team executives around the National Hockey League over the last week, that's the growing sentiment, is that instead of just focusing on some transition rules that'll get both sides over the hump over the next 12 months in terms of the salary cap, escrow, July 1st, all these things that we just talked about, is there a bigger picture solution? Could there be a long-term CBA extension? Some long-standing ideas that bring stability into what will be a very difficult situation for the NHL business. Who knows what the revenues look like on the other side of all this through this COVID-19 crisis. So I know it's something that even at the PA and the league that they're starting to talk about internally, not with each other, mind you. CBA talks are on hold, but hopefully that could be the solution out of all this, is a way for both sides to find long-term stability.
Desperately need something positive right about now. It's the boys and insider trading.